Hey guys, how you doing? So excuse my little nasally voice, and if I sneeze or something like that, then I have had a cold over the weekend. Anyway, so I thought I'd choose this topic, um, and there's probably a lot of people out there who would suggest that women learn striking skills and things like this for their self-defense. And I usually say to women in my women's self-defense classes that probably the most useful weapon that they have is their head. And from a striking point of view, I'd recommend knees, elbows, and using your head. And most would overlook the use of your head in terms of headbutts, but not like a traditional headbutt where you're going to like headbutt somebody with your forehead. The fact that women are traditionally shorter than guys, places their head in a perfect position underneath the person's chin to be able to deliver, like from using your legs and hips, a really powerful strike. And I think that that's probably very underutilized in most martial arts and most self-defense systems. The way I look at self-defense is a little different than many, I'm sure, mostly because I've had a huge amount of experience in a lot of different martial arts and quite a large extensive experience doing security work in some pretty out of control clubs and nightclubs for a very long period of time. And there was absolutely no restrictions put on us by our bosses as to what we could and couldn't really do when we were working. So that really only came in once I got to Australia. But in New Zealand, pretty much you could do anything you wanted. So we got to practice whatever martial art we were doing, like on patrons, 4 nights a week, every week for years and years and years. Anyway, so I think almost regardless of the martial art and self-defense system that a woman chooses to use, or not so much to use, but to take part in, I think the biggest benefit from it is not even really their fighting skill. I think the biggest benefit is that they gain the self-confidence to be able to say no when it comes to the microaggressions that guys or people will use. So when it comes to, like the typical scenario, I guess, is like an adult male grooming a young, naive woman, then her knowing that him maybe placing his hand on her butt innocently, trying to segregate her from her friends, like grooming type behavior, that hopefully she would have the self-confidence, first of all, the situational awareness to realize that what was happening, that it was unusual, that she was being targeted or her friends were being separated or whatever, that she would have the self-confidence to be able to speak to her parents, the people in charge, her team manager, or, appropriate adults, so that those micro transgressions, which are, I guess, often used by people grooming children, like they're using it as a testing ground, I'm sure, to see if where are the limits here, like what can I push? And so if they get a no early on, that becomes a harder target. And criminals, for the most part, whether they're sexual predators, whether they are people that want to break into your house, they're looking for a soft target. So they're looking for people who they can isolate. They're looking for people who typically have low self-esteem that they can pretend to mentor. And so I think that the biggest benefit when it comes to self-defense training for women is not the physical training is like a catalyst to an internal change. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that through physical training and overcoming there's many emotional obstacles that women face. Guys face them too. Guys tend to hide it a little bit better. But I see guys struggle with the lack of control, with claustrophobia, with being dominated, with realizing that they can't fight and they really can't protect themselves, that it's been a fallacy, it's been something they've been hiding from for a large portion of their life. I have just as many men and males who have been bullied as I have females who have been bullied or assaulted. It's about it's I would say it's the same. The fact that I have far more men training in my academy than women, but still have quite a few girls. I mean, every academy I've had, there's always been we had probably the biggest female class in the country when I was running Ground Zero. We had 25 girls or something. We had a brown belt running the class. It was pretty big for the time. This is 15 years ago or something. So like that was astronomical back then, because I'm very defensive when it comes to, or protective when it comes to women wanting to do martial arts and talking about self-protection, because of, what I went through with my parents. And I had a very hyper-aggressive father and a determined and yet submissive kind of mother. And so, she didn't get beaten up, but she certainly got intimidated and certainly was scared to leave my dad. And it took a very long time for her to do so, too long in my experience. And so I want women to feel powerful. I want them to feel confident. I don't want them to feel like a false sense of security. I think that that's really dangerous, selling women on the idea that they're going to be Lara Croft and take down all these guys. The very first thing I say, and I say it probably in every single self-defense class, and I say it in the mixed classes as well, that if you get to go home, then you won. If you get attacked by some guy in a dark park and get the hell beaten out of you, and you manage to go home to your family, to your kids, to your job, to the things that you enjoy doing, then that to me is a win. Because not going home, well, you won't suffer anymore, but those that you leave behind will. So that's my primary goal, is to ensure that people have the skills to be able to get them home, or to at least survive an attack. And I don't joke around with it. I take it pretty seriously. And the women's self-defense classes I try and make, humorous, because but I also speak my truth and make sure that they're all aware of like the gravity of the situation, that, we're not jumping around doing kickboxercise and crap like that. That I talk real, and I like to train in a real way, which is, why I love Gracie Jiu Jitsu so much, because of the realism of it. And so that's the first thing. I think that regardless of what they do, building their self-confidence so they have the ability to recognize when things are not right, to be able to have the confidence to be able to speak out at the time, and also the confidence to be able to tell their parents and coaches or whoever it is that's appropriate, what's going on. Like, that's a big thing. That's a huge thing, because in swimming and gymnastics, it happens for decades at a time before somebody's caught, because none of the girls have the confidence at the time to speak. You don't have to speak out publicly, but to have the confidence to be able to even tell their parents what's going on, and that they think that it's not right. Like, that's a huge thing. And I think that if we can stop a lot of those micro transgressions before it becomes a regular thing, before the person starts targeting lots of people, I think that's a win for sure. When it comes to women actually training in jiu-jitsu, I think that they probably underestimate the trauma that guys feel when guys are coming and doing it. Like, guys somehow have it easier than them. Uh, and I think that that's incorrect. I think that yes, a large portion of women have been assaulted when they were young. A lot of men have too, but it's not spoken about. Women are encouraged to speak up about it and generally do, whereas men are too ashamed and just don't admit it. So I think that the proportion of men and women who are assaulted when they're young is about on par with each other. I don't see it as terribly different. But men will more readily turn that insecurity into anger and use that anger to drive them forwards to excel in sports and martial arts and other things. They will take that anger and they'll turn it into the weights room to get big and strong, to be able to protect themselves so they don't feel vulnerable anymore. They will become competitive in sports and want to dominate other guys and dominate other teams to feed that insecurity so that they don't feel, hopeless again. Women will tend to become more empathic and more withdrawn and less likely to want to engage in competitive things. They're going to avoid confrontation for the most part. And so they've got different ways of dealing with the same trauma. The guys who are out there dominating and winning and fighting and competing seem to be doing great. But underneath, what's driving it is the same as the woman who has pretty much withdrawn from life and doesn't have many friends and doesn't socialize and things like that. So I don't look at the outward expression of what's going on as an indicator as to their mental health and how well they're dealing with it, because I've been there myself and I know how much I've covered up and I know how much I've used anger and frustration and a feeling of vulnerability and overcompensated through high-level sport and particular martial arts. So when somebody, and I say anybody, male or female, comes to the gym and wants to train, well, I think that's amazing. I think it's awesome and I do everything I can to support them. But I also realize that women will probably take a little bit longer to feel more comfortable, especially in a physical setting. And that's totally okay. Like usually there's another woman or at least a few other women for them to train within the class. And that's great. I've got no problem with the women wanting to train with women for a while. I mean, eventually it'll be great for them, because I also don't want the guys in the class to feel that they're being somehow ostracized, because most of them are good guys. They're all good guys. That's why they're there in the gym trying to better themselves. And they want all the women around them to be stronger and more independent. And they have daughters, they have wives, they have, women in their lives that they don't ever want that stuff to happen to. And they want those women to be stronger and to be able to protect themselves and feel confident, to be able to say no and to be able to put boundaries up and to be able to maintain those boundaries and be consistent in their in their moral compass, and to be able to employ that, as they need. There wouldn't be a guy on the mat who's happy that he himself is training and he's able to protect himself. But he's quite happy for his wife to feel that she's vulnerable. Everybody, I mean, it can be tricky to get the wives on the mat, especially when there's kids and there's juggling of kids and stuff like this, which is why I make the women's self-defense classes free, because I don't want them to be a barrier. There should be if it's absolutely free, then what's the barrier? What's in the way? There's nothing in the way then. And so by making it free, I'm almost challenging them, saying, look, here's a perfect chance for you to become someone different than who you are now. And there's no barrier, there's no cost. So all you have to do is actually turn up, and I'll try and make it an incredible experience for you. And I hope that you stay on the mat and train for the rest of your life. There's no pressure to have to do that, but of course that would be amazing, because doing like a 6-week course or something like that. Like it's not a 6-week course. It's not an 8-week course. It's just permanent as far as I can tell. As long as it's supported, I'll continue to do it. That's all I say. They're like, how long is the course? It's not, it goes on forever. If you support it, I'll do it forever. I'll do it until the day I die because it's that important. That's what I think. I think it's that important that I'll do it for free for the rest of my life, so long as it's supported. And that way, I've done my part. I've done all that I can. I promote it. I encourage women to do it. The women that turn up, I'm very supportive. I give them the best of myself every single class. And I'm very realistic with them. I think the best thing that you can do if you're overweight is to get in shape and get healthy. That's the best thing you can do. And I understand that men and women out there, that there is a psychological condition whereby you are overeating to get unattractive to the opposite sex because something happened to you. I also understand that it's a way of keeping people away, that the excess weight that you're carrying is a way of keeping the world at bay, that eating shit food sets off all these receptors in your brain that makes you feel good, that there's something consistent there that you can trust, which is food, that's going to consistently make you feel good, and it's predictable and it's within your control. But ultimately, it's probably going to kill you. You're probably going to die earlier. You're going to leave your kids behind without a mother or a father because you're obese. Yeah. Like, it's an epidemic now. People are getting lazier and lazier and lazier. And if you want your kids to be healthy and fit and strong and all the things that you're not, it's probably not going to happen. Kids are far more likely to copy the behavior of their parents rather than do what the parents say. So if you're overweight and you're telling your kids to be healthy and go to sport and do all that sort of stuff, it's unlikely that they're going to. Yeah, because you're their hero. You are who they want to be. You are their mentor for life. And you have to set a good example. You have to be in shape. I'm not saying you have to be Chris Hemsworth, ripped, jacked, looking like some superhero. You don't have to do that. You have to have good routines. You have to get up at a similar time most days. You have to work out most days. Do something. It's good for your kids to see you doing push-ups in the living room. Maybe they'll join you. Maybe they'll climb on your back. Maybe you can wrestle with them and engage them in physical contact like that, which is really, really great, right? Maybe you go for a walk around the block each night, you and the family and the dog. Yeah, it's a thing that you do. Moving and exercise and activity is just a part of your lifestyle, as well as eating healthy. Don't eat crap, right? There's no need, right? There's so much good food around these days. We're not ignorant anymore. Like maybe on Friday night, get fish and chips. Maybe on Friday night, get a pizza or something. Like once a week, maybe once a month. Yeah, but like not every day. Yeah, I see far too many kids just hoeing down potato chips and absolute junk, and then parents wonder why the kids have hyperactivity disorders and all these sorts of things. Well, fix the food first, because the food is driving them. If the kids are not that active and you're feeding them high calorie foods, high in sugar, high in fat, and they don't have the opportunity to use it, guess what? They're going to go nuts, the same as anybody would. Yeah, kids are supposed to be moving. They're supposed to be exploring the world. Yeah, males and females. Anyway, so specifically with women, like young women, from what I've seen, tend to be very self-conscious. So I think Jiu Jitsu and putting them in a big baggy uniform is actually quite good for them. I think they quite like it. I could be wrong. Let me know. But for the most part, I like everybody in the club to wear a uniform. And we have a club uniform, only white gis, and you can wear any white gear you want pretty much. I don't want anything crazy on it or anything like that. It's not a fashion contest. We all just wear the same gi. I wear the same gear as everybody else. I'm not wearing $1,000 bloody show you roll gi or anything like that. We just wear a good quality gi, and it's the same for everybody, because the whole point is that it's called a uniform, yeah, for a reason, is that we are the same. I don't want people being able to look onto the mat and see this guy's a doctor or a lawyer. Look, he's wearing $1,000 show-year-old gi, and then this kid can't afford one of those, and his parents can only afford the standard one. It's not about the uniform. It's about the training. It's about the camaraderie. It's about what you're learning and who you're learning it with. Forget about the uniform. It's not important, right? Okay, so that's why we just have white gis, just a single gi for everybody. Forget about it. Don't worry about it. If you want something that fits differently, I'll get it custom made for you with exactly the same color and logos and everything. If you're that fussy, I'm happy to. Tell me what you want. I'll get it custom made for you so you can be happy, right? But so the young women tend to like throwing the gi on. It kind of hides their curves and things that, you know, like their bodies are changing, and you can tell that they're a little unsure about themselves in this new body. So like being able to put a uniform over it and cover it up is not a bad thing for them. They quite like that. Sometimes it doesn't fit that great, so I'll do my best to get something custom made for them. And it's funny because inside there seems to be quite a drive in them, and I'm talking girls who are in their teens. There seems to be quite a drive there. I can see it and I can sense it. They're excited. They're a little unsure of themselves, and it seems to be a new generation thing where they're lacking self-confidence a little more than normal, because so much of their interaction is online. And so with a lot of your interaction online, you don't get a lot of confidence in actually meeting real people, because you just get a friend request and you check out some pictures or videos and they seem okay, whatever. But when you meet people in real life, then it takes some skill, and you have to learn how to control your own anxiety and your own lack of confidence, and to be able to communicate with people and ask them questions and find out what their interests are, and then tell them about your interests, and like build a real friendship. And so a lot of these skills, the new generation are just not learning. They're doing it mostly online, and so interpersonal relationships are really suffering. They're struggling to make friends, and I think a lot of their loss of confidence comes from that, from just interacting on a screen all the time and not interacting with human beings enough. They're not particularly good at dealing with conflict. That's another thing. And so bringing young girls or women onto the mat, putting them in a uniform so they look just like everybody else, they feel like they fit in, or hopefully they do, and then, you know, giving them the freedom the same as every other person on the mat to be able to progress at their own rate. I don't throw them into like hard rolling straight away. There's like, if they seem a little bit timid, that's totally cool. You know, like work at your own rate. It's the whole crawl, walk, run thing the Navy SEALs employ. I like the idea of it, which is like start off everybody at a very, very base level and let everybody build up at their own rate. Some guys will come in, they're 25, they're athletic, they're confident, and they want to start rolling straight away. Well, that's great. Yeah, like I'm happy to put them in some high grades. They're a physical person, they're confident physically, they don't have any nagging injuries or anything like that. Go for it, have fun, enjoy yourself. Awesome, I'm behind that. But that's rare. Yeah, that would be like less than 5% of the gym. So by far the majority of people are either young kids or people over 35, 40. So the young kids are fine. I mean, but then again, you know, sometimes they're lacking self-confidence. They're a little bit shy. They've been bullied at school. And so like they can take their little time, you know, working into it as well. And I think that women face a similar thing, that they're not used to being particularly physical. They're not usually given the permission to be like a little bit aggressive or assertive physically and stuff like that. And it can take them a little while before they find the confidence to be able to do that. So being able to give them the space and the time to be able to find that part of themselves, I'm all about that. I'm also about challenging people. So if I see somebody who is being complacent, who's, like it's fine for a while, a couple of months, but it's my job to also challenge you a little bit and push you into areas that maybe you don't think you're ready yet for, but I think are going to be transformative for you, right? And so sometimes there's a little bit of pushback from the woman, but ultimately they see that I'm very caring and that everything I'm doing is for their betterment. It's not for my ego or anything else. It's because I genuinely want everybody to feel the confidence that I feel and to be able to enjoy the art fully, yeah, and to get from it what they're paying for and what they expect. So it's amazing watching, especially women in their like 40s and 50s and stuff like that, come into the art, be kind of shy. I know they sit in their cars and like cry before class because they're feeling so insecure, and I tell them, excuse me, I tell them about my first experience as a 27-year-old, like super athlete, going home and crying in the shower for like 2 hours after my first jiu-jitsu class. Admittedly, I went in and challenged the school and I was an arrogant dickhead, right? But the fear and the insecurity and the lack of self-belief and everything is exactly the same. And that's why I like to tell the women about how, because a lot of the guys tell me about their fears, but they're unlikely to go and maybe they'll tell their wife, I don't know, but certainly they're not open about it in the club. And I certainly won't name them, but I'll let the women know that, like, hey, guys feel like that too. Like, it's almost easier to train women because women will walk through the door feeling very insecure, thinking that they can't fight, I can't do this, I'm going to be hopeless, and it's almost easier to train and coach that person than it is someone who walks through the door that in their head they're like, if it came down to it, I'd kick ass. Yeah. And then a couple of jiu-jitsu classes in, you can tell like they're struggling a little bit with insecurity, and it's a challenge for them for sure. But we all go through that, male or female. We all go through that phase right at the start when we feel that we can't do it, that we're not good enough, that everybody else in the club or everybody else in the world seems to be unknowingly talented at jiu-jitsu and we're just not. Well, it's not like that. It's not like that at all. Whether you're tall or short or fat or skinny or whatever, then there's a way that you can learn to do jiu-jitsu for yourself, for your body type, that's going to be awesome, and you're going to have a lot of fun. Are you going to be world champion? Who knows, right? But that's not what's important, the way I see it. The most important thing is, like, how are you developing for you? Yeah. So I don't really grade people when it comes to belts relative to each other. Yeah. If a guy's 25, athlete, confident, everything else, he's going to get graded. He's going to take longer to get to blue belt. The grading's going to be harder. I'm going to be fussier on him because he's a super specimen, right? So I expect big things from this guy, right? If he's competitive and stuff like that, I'll expect him to be going in tournaments and to be winning them and to be the super athlete that he is at that age. You walk in at 45, 50 years of age with dodgy knees and a bodgy back and you've got smashed up shoulders from footy, well, I'm looking at you versus you, yeah? Not you compared to that 25-year-old guy. If you guys end up rolling a year or so into your journey, I'd expect that young guy to kick the shit out of you, right? Okay, given that you've been doing the same training. I don't expect the same things from the older guys. It's unrealistic, yeah? But how are you doing relative to you? And that's what's important, yeah? That's what's important. It's like, how are you doing relative to your growth? And that's what I'm really interested in, yeah? So, in short, I think everybody struggles on the mat. Everybody struggles early on. Everybody walks in feeling insecure and anxious and struggles for a while. And everybody goes through the same massive growth and plateaus and loving it and sometimes hate it. It's this more similar to everybody than it is different. It's a very similar experience for men and for women. The way that they express their insecurities is a little different. Women are far more likely to be self-critical and introverted and withdrawn, whereas men will generally overcompensate by being hyper-competitive and very driven and stuff like this, right? So for all the women out there who are considering doing jiu-jitsu, please get on the mat and start. I employ all, I think it should be compulsory in every school. Yeah, I think that it's such an incredible martial art in terms of self-protection, in terms of personal development, in terms of understanding your body. I out of all the martial arts I've done, by far, it's the one that I wish I'd been able to do it when I was young. It didn't even really exist where I was until I was in my late 20s, which is when I discovered it. So yeah, the younger the better. When you start with kids, no pressure. Let them have fun. Let them explore the art. Let them grow into their bodies and explore their bodies and have fun with it for as long as they can. I think when they hit their mid-teens to late teens, then they're going to start wanting to get a little bit competitive, especially the boys. The testosterone is going to be pouring through them. Then they're going to want to compete. They're going to want to be competitive. They're going to want to fight more. They're going to want to get more physical. And it's a great outlet for all of that sort of stuff. Anyway, I hope that you found that interesting. If you've got any questions about my experiences, let fly in the comments. I enjoy interacting with the people that do bother watching my videos. And yeah, everyone get on the mat and have fun.